Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inshallah, today we'll be starting off with Arabic grammar. We'll be taking from a book that's known as Al-Ajurumiyya, some say Al-Ajurramiyya. Whatever is important in terms of implementation, I'll give it to you. As for what might be a little bit extra, and then I won't. And I'll try and summarize as best as possible so you're able to learn the rules. So firstly, inshallah, today I'll give you an introduction. Firstly, in the Arabic language, every word that you see, okay, we'll call it kalam. That's kalam. The author, he gives you the different rules of it. To make it easy, we'll just translate it as a word, okay? So any word that you see in the Arabic language can be one of three things. It's either going to be a noun, okay? A noun is a name of something, somebody, or it's going to be a verb. A verb is an action word or doing word. Or it's going to be what they call a harf. A noun is called ism, literally. Noun, name, ism. A verb is called a fi'l. And whatever is not an ism or a fi'l is called harf. Okay? Now, why are they giving you this differentiation at the very beginning? Because ism has a different i'rab. What's i'rab? I told you in the previous lesson. I'rab is to do with the changing of what's on the last letter of every word. So for example, fi'l. We're interested in this lam here. Is it fi'lun or fi'lan or fi'lin? Ism. Is it ismun or isman or ismin? I'rab. Is it i'rabun or i'raban or i'rabin? Okay? So what they differentiated, they gave you these three at the very beginning because they all have different rules when it comes to the change at the end. A noun is slightly different to a verb, meaning ism is slightly different to fi'l. Fi'l is slightly different to harf. Okay? So that's part one that I want you to understand. Any word you see in your book when you're reading, it's either going to be a noun, or it's going to be some sort of a verb, or it's going to be some sort of a harf. Then, the second thing I want you to understand is i'rab. We said i'rab is the changing of what's on the last letter of the word, right? This i'rab is 4 categories. Something can either be marfu', okay? Mim, ra, fa, waw, ain. Or it can be mansub, mim, noon, sad, waw, and ba. Or it could be what they say majroor, mim, jim, ra, waw, and ra, majroor. Or it could be majzoom, mim, jim, zai, waw, mim. Okay, you've got marfu', you've got mansub, you've got majroor, and you've got majzoom, right? What's all this about? You've heard about dhamma, fatha, kasra, and sukun, okay? So marfu', just imagine these to be football teams, okay? These are teams. This is the name of the team. And each team has a main character or a main player or captain, okay? So marfu', from rafa. Rafa is to be high or to be raised. So the main character here is a dhamma. Dhamma. So that's why when they tell you fa'il, fa'il is a doing word. So for example, zaydun. What's zaydun? What's the i'rab of zaydun? You say it's marfu'. What shows us that it's marfu'? What's representing marfu' on zaydun? It's dhamma. Understood? So when you're saying the i'rab of something, you're saying it's either marfu' or mansub or majroor or majzoom. It belongs to one of these teams as we've put it. Okay, someone tells you zaydun. You're saying it's marfu'. Prove to me it's marfu'. You say because it's got a dhamma. Then you've got mansub. The main character in mansub is fatha. So zaydan. What's zaydan? What's the i'rab? You say mansub. Why is it mansub? What's the sign to show it's mansub? It's got a fatha. Okay. Then you've got majroor from jar, kasra. So the name of this is called majroor. Main character is a kasra. Zaydin is majroor. Why is it majroor? Because it has a kasra. Then you've got majzoom. Majzoom from jazm. What's the main character here is a sukoon. So for example, if you stop on يعمل فمن يعمل, the lam at the end they got a sukoon. We say majzoom. Okay, why is it majzoom? Because got a sukoon. Right. After you understood this, then at times, same like a football team, the captain may not be present, the main character may not be present. Okay, you need to do your i'rab. Do you say there's no i'rab now? No. They have the deputies, or they have characters or words that fill in for them, or harakat. Okay, all of them they have. Marfu has 4, mansub 5, majroor 3, majzoom 2, and then you learn those in detail. So for now, all I want you to understand is this and this. Everything you see is either an ism or fi'l or harf, and they give you some rules which are specific for ism. So they'll tell you, for example, an ism will only take kasra. So the minute you see, for example, zaydin, you know that this zaydin is always a noun. It can never be a fi'l, because why a fi'l? A verb doesn't take kasra, and that I'll give you in the next lesson. For now, this I just want to have an overview. So ism, fi'l, and harf, and you've got marfu', mansub, majroor, and majzoom, and head of the main character here is dhamma, main character here is fatha, main character here is kasra, main character here is sukoon. And that's why when I used to correct you in the previous book and say it's not zaydun, zaydan, or zaydin, is to do with this. And there's a difference in meaning when you change this fatha and you change the kasra and you change to dhamma and you change to sukoon. So you learn all that also. Inshallah, tomorrow I'll give you the first lesson. I'll give you certain rules, which if you see on a word, you know that this is a noun. Certain rules, if you know it's a fi'l or verb, certain you know which are harf. And then we'll move on to these to say, okay, there's certain words, for example, that are marfu' but not with dhamma. Instead of dhamma, one of the deputies come. What are they? Fatha. What are they? Kasra. What are they? Sukoon. What are they? And inshallah, by the end of the book, you'll have a good understanding of Arabic grammar. Any questions? As long as you got the concept, you've got an idea of what we'll be dealing with. Any question? This is extremely important. So when you're going to be reading, I don't want you to make a mistake to say, instead of ja'a zaydun, you say ja'a zaydin. Yeah, you can't make that mistake. You learn why it's zaydun. Marartu bi zaydin. You learn why it's zaydin and not zaydan in that sentence. Any questions? Understood? Alam Gheer?
Okay, this much I understand.
This is all I want you to understand. Just get an idea. Go deeper and deeper. And then as you're reading, we'll apply this. Before I was telling the students to memorize. Whoever can memorize, memorize. Whoever can't, no problem. Inshallah, I'll summarize this for you. And you take the summary. Ibrahim?
What happened in the past 2 minutes? I ended up getting disconnected. There was some internet issue.
Okay, but I hope you've got an idea. Any word you see is either a noun, a verb, or a harf. And i'rab is to do with the changing on the last letter of the word. Will it be marfu', mansub, majroor, or majzoom? If something is marfu', the main character there is dhamma. Something mansub, main character is fatha, majroor, kasra, majzoom, sukun. And we'll go into more detail tomorrow, inshallah. Anybody else?
Sheikh, when we say Aqra'ul Qur'ana fil masjid,
Right.
so two ism, masjid and Qur'an. So one has kasra because of preposition.
One second. For those who don't understand, Alam Ghair is talking about what you're going to take about after about 10 or 20 lessons. So if you don't understand, don't worry. Aqra'ul Qur'ana fil masjidi. So look, Aqra'u is a fi'l, and in it is fa'il also. Al-Qur'ana, maf'ul bih. Maf'ul bih is always mansub, and there is got a fatha. Fi is harf jar. Al-masjidi is ism, however it's majroor. It has a kasra because fi entered on it. So you must never ever say aqra'ul Qur'ani fil masjidah. That's a mistake. But that we'll still get there. Any other question?
So, Sheikh, al-Qur'ana is mansub because of.
We'll get. Hold on. We'll get there. We'll get there. Don't worry. Up to here, you understood? Up to here, you understood? I'm happy.
Yes, Sheikh.
No more question on this?
No question, Sheikh.
Yeah, we go to reading. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Carrying on with our book in the Seerah. Here is speaking about the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam with his wives. Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu narrated the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam used to go around to all his wives and have intercourse with them all in one night. He sallallahu alayhi wasallam had 9 wives under him at that time. Qatada rahimahullah asked him, was he physically able to tolerate that? Anas radiallahu anhu narrated, we were told that he was given the strength of 30 men. Ibn Hajar rahimahullah said, he sallallahu alayhi wasallam married many women so that the channels for spreading Islamic rulings, which only his wives would be exposed to, would be multiplied. That's why you find there's a hadith which Aisha radiallahu anha narrates, which occurred in the house. If she wasn't there, nobody would have narrated that. Some of the other wives narrate, radiallahu anhum, jami'an. And so that's what Ibn Hajar rahimahullah is trying to tell you here. It also reflects a miraculous way of caring for all these households when he sallallahu alayhi wasallam hardly had sustenance to satisfy his own hunger. And whenever he had any, he sallallahu alayhi wasallam would favor others over himself and give it to them. Additionally, he sallallahu alayhi wasallam fasted frequently, and at times he would fast continuously for many days. That's called wisal. That was only for the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, where he could fast without breaking his fast. And yet he was able to approach all his wives in one night. In normal situations, this cannot be done unless one is physically strong and fit. Arabs praise a man with this quality and consider it a sign of manhood. Nonetheless, the large number of wives he had, with all that is connected to having such a large number, never preoccupied him from his worship to Allah. His worship never held him back from spending time with his wives and being with them. Aisha radiallahu anha narrated the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would pray the 2 rak'ah before Fajr, and if I had gotten up by then, he would talk with me, and if not, then he would lie down until it was time to pray. He sallallahu alayhi wasallam would talk and walk with them even during travel. Aisha radiallahu anha narrated, when the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam set out on a journey, he would cast lots amongst his wives, meaning he had 9 wives, okay? It's not possible to take them all. So for example, if you put everyone's names in a hat, for example, and then you pull out one, then whoever's name comes out is the one that goes. A similar concept, pulling lots. Once this lot came out in my favor and that of Hafsa radiallahu anha, we both went along with him. The Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to travel on camel, and when it was night, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam would walk along with me and would talk with me. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam kept up this practice. Even on a night he married a new wife. Anas radiallahu anhu narrated, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam served us bread and meat on the night of his marriage to Zainab bin Jahsh radiallahu anha. I was commanded to go out and invite people to eat. People kept going in to eat and leave, and then a new group would come, eat and leave. I kept inviting people until it was broad daylight. I said to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I cannot find any more people to invite. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam then said, lift the food up. Then he sallallahu alaihi wasallam left and began to visit the rooms of his wives and started with the room of Aisha. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam got in and greeted her, saying, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. O people of the house. Aisha greeted him back, saying, Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How did you find your new wife, i.e. Zainab? I ask Allah to bless them for you. Then he sallallahu alaihi wasallam went around to all his wives saying the same, and they replied the same as Aisha radiallahu anha. Al-Qurtubi rahimahullah said, he sallallahu alayhi wasallam went around to the rooms of his wives to check on them as a way of comforting their hearts and to ease their hearts, since he had married a new wife besides them, which resulted in them inquiring about his new marriage in a courteous manner. Asking about his new wife coming as a co-wife reflects how wise and sound-minded, patient and kind in their treatment they were, because this is a situation where women usually act irrationally due to jealousy. Indeed, they were pure and kind women married to a pure and kind man, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Another narration stated that he, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, passed by each of his wives, greeting and asking how they were. They would greet him back and ask about his new wife, and he, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, would say everything is fine. Nawawi rahimahullah says, the narration proves that it is recommended for the man to greet his wife and family whenever he enters the house. Many ignorant men feel too proud to do so. A man should ask his wife how she feels, so that he would instigate her to tell him what's in her heart if she is suffering from anything and facing any problems and was too shy to approach him with it. But if he asks, then she would be encouraged to talk. He sallallahu alayhi wasallam was faithful to his wives and would safeguard their rights. The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam praised Khadija radiallahu anha during her life and after her death, more than he praised any other wife. He sallallahu alayhi wasallam was keen on highlighting her virtues and her status in his heart, and that she maintained this status even after her death. Aisha radiallahu anha narrated, never did I feel jealous of the wives of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam except in the case of Khadija. Although I did not have the privilege to see her, whenever the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam slaughtered a sheep, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, send it to the friends of Khadija. One day I said to him, it is Khadija only who always prevails upon your mind. Thereupon he sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, she was such and such a woman, praising her, and she was the mother of my children. Ibn Hajar rahimahullah said, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam never ceased praising her and mentioning her even after her death. Rather, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam stayed faithful after her death and continued to praise her and mention her good traits and how wise and virtuous she was. All the children of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam were from her, except Ibrahim, whose mother was Maria. His children from her were 2 sons and 4 daughters, meaning Khadija radiallahu anha. Al-Qasim, Abdullah, he was born after the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was commissioned and used to be called At-Tahir and At-Tayyib, and his daughters were Zainab, Ruqayyah, Kulthum, and Fatima radiallahu anha. I'll read one more. He sallallahu alayhi wasallam would praise Khadija whenever he mentioned her name. Aisha radiallahu anha narrated, whenever the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam mentioned the name of Khadija, he praised her and did not tire of praising her and supplicating Allah for her forgiveness. These days, when one looks at the condition of people, one wonders at the state of affairs. You find a man marrying a new wife after the death of his first wife. And whenever he sits in a gathering, he would praise the second wife and start enumerating the mistakes of the first. Another case one comes across is a man who divorces his wife and brags about how patient he was with her despite her dispraised traits. Some people never mention any good quality of the wife, regardless of how good she is to him. That's why Allah was speaking about talaq and divorce and getting married again, etc. It says, وَلَا تَنْسَوُا الْفَضْلَ بَيْنَكُمْ. Don't forget the virtue and the goodness that was between you, meaning husband and wife. Sometimes even people have to part ways. As فَإِمْسَاكٌ بِمَعْرُوفٍ أَوْ تَسْرِيحٌ بِإِحْسَانٍ. Either keep each other, means stay together with goodness, or depart with goodness. And even though they're speaking about divorce, but it also entails and encompasses other relationships at times you may have. I mean, the rule still applies. Someone's working for you and they need to move, or you working for somebody, you need to go, or somebody's working for you and you need to let them go, i.e. fire them. Do it with goodness. إِمْسَاكٌ بِمَعْرُوفٍ أَوْ تَسْرِيحٌ بِإِحْسَانٍ. Rahim, are you going to read for us?
Sure.
Right, you can read.
All right.
Stop here.
All right. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. At one time I went to the...
It's a secular book, so you don't have to start with Bismillah.
I don't know. Sometimes I stumble, so it helps me.
You can. I mean, the person starts in the name of Allah. Anyway, it's sometimes not befitting with some of the things they mention. Carry on.
At one time, I went to the grand ballroom of a certain New York hotel for 20 nights in each season in order to hold a series of lectures. At the beginning of one season, I was suddenly informed that I should have to pay almost 3 times as much rent as formerly. This news reached me after the tickets had been printed and distributed, and all announcements had been made. Naturally, I didn't want to pay the increase, but what was the use of talking to the hotel about what I wanted? They were interested in only what they wanted. So a couple of days later, I went to go see the manager. I was I was a bit shocked when I got your letter, I said, but I don't blame you at all. At you at all. If I had been in your position, I should probably have written a similar letter myself. Your duty as the manager of the hotel is to make all the profit possible. If you don't do that, you will be fired, and you ought to be fired. Now, let's take a piece of paper and write down the advantage and disadvantage that will occur to you. If you insist on this increase in rent, then I took a letterhead and ran a line through the center and headed one column, advantages, and the other column, disadvantages. I wrote down under the head, advantages, these words, volume 3. Then I went to say, you will have the advantage of having the ballroom free to rent for dances and conventions. That is a big advantage for affairs like that. That will pay much more than you can get for a series of lectures. If I tie up your ballroom for 20 nights during the course of the season, it is sure to mean a loss of some profitable business to you. Now let's consider the disadvantages. First, instead of increasing your income from me, you're going to decrease it. In fact, you're going to wipe it out because I cannot pay you for the rent you're asking. I shall be forced to hold these lectures at some other place. There's another disadvantage to you also. These lectures attract crowds of educated and cultural people to your hotel. That is good advertising for you, isn't it? In fact, if you spent $5,000 advertising in the newspaper, you couldn't bring as many people to look at your hotel as I can bring by these lectures. That's worth a lot to a hotel, isn't it? As I talked, I wrote these 2 disadvantages under the paper heading and handed the sheet to the manager saying, I wish you would carefully consider both the advantages and disadvantages that are going to occur to you and then give me your final decision. I received a letter the next day informing me that my rent would be increased by only 50% instead of 200%. Mind you, I got this reduction without saying a word about what I wanted. I talked all about what the other person wanted and how he could get it. Suppose I had done the human, natural thing. Suppose I stormed into the office and said, "What do you mean by raising my rent 300% when you know the tickets have been printed and the announcements have been made? 300% ridiculous, absurd. I won't pay it." What would have happened to it? An argument would have begun to steam and boil and sputter. And you know how arguments end. Even if I had convinced him that he was wrong, his pride would have made it difficult for him to get back and give in. It was one of the best bits of advice ever given about the fine arts of human relationships. If there is any one secret of success, said Henry Ford, it lies in the ability to get the person's point of view and see things from that person's angle as well as from your own. That is so good. I want to repeat it. If there's any one secret of success, it lies in the ability to get the other person's point of view and see things from that person's angle as well as from your own. That is so simple, so obvious that anyone ought to see the truth of it at a glance. Yet 90% of people on the earth ignore it 90% of the time. An example, look
Stop
at
there,
the
stop there, stop there, stop there. We'll read this tomorrow, inshallah. It's a little bit long. Inshallah, we'll read that.